welcome to Meet the Candidates. We have Nader Hashim for Windham District 4 here in the area. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely, thanks for inviting me.
No problem, and then we're gonna get to know each other. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a little cloudy outside, but it's good.
Yeah, good summer so far?
Yeah, it's been busy with the campaign, but it's a balancing act, but it's going real well. So,
Nice. Yeah. So you're local here now, but you're not originally local from the area.
Right.
Can you tell us where you're from?
Sure. So I was born in Boston, and we moved up and down the East Coast. From Boston, we went to right outside Washington, D.C. Then we ended up moving up to Rhode Island, and after Rhode Island, I moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, where I studied at Clark University. Got my degree in political science and found my way up here to Vermont.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you like Vermont?
I love it. I'm going to grow old here. I'm glad my daughter lives here too.
It's a good place.
Oh yeah.
And so your dad is intellectual, and you got a lot of his wisdom from him.
I'd like to think so. Yeah, he was he was in the Army. He was also a political science professor, and he really helped in opening up my eyes to the world of politics. And my mom as well. I have to give her credit where it's due. She came here because of the political violence in Iran, and she was activist in Boston, and so two very different sides gave me a lot of different wisdom from different angles.
Mm-hmm. Now, both of your parents are immigrants.
Yep.
And you were saying how racism had a place in your growing up, especially after 9/11. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I grew up in a very diverse area, and outside Washington D.C. And after 9/11 happened, it was it's like the racism switch turned on for Middle Eastern people. At least that's how it felt when I was a teenager down there, and it really opened up my eyes to how people can become when different groups of people are dehumanized essentially on TV. And what this encouraged me to do was go into the system itself to help change things.
And now you had a pretty interesting way of fixing that. You became a state trooper. How was that decision to?
Yeah, so right after I graduated from Clark University, I was offered a job with the Vermont State Police, and I've been working in the southern part of Vermont for the last 7 years, on the road, in our communities, helping our most vulnerable members in our society. And I take a very community-oriented approach to policing. I think that we can do a lot more for our communities than just writing tickets. And my mentality is to rebuild the trust that has been eroded over the last few decades between the communities and law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about being ready for office, you've not run for, this is your first time running, correct?
Correct.
So what do you think are some of your, experience in government, and not just that, but like your qualities that you are going to be bringing?
So my involvement in the community is my biggest strength, in my opinion. Every day that I'm at work is me being involved in my communities and helping out the most vulnerable people. And I've seen face to face a lot of the poverty that people have to experience, as well as the effects from the opioid crisis. And I grew up middle class, and I knew that poverty was a thing, but I never knew how it truly affected people until I started going into those homes and seeing how people are just barely surviving. And so I think having that exposure is my biggest strength, because it's one thing to see poverty face to face as opposed to reading about it on a piece of paper. And other strengths I think is my work ethic. I've been balancing being a dad, working full time on the night shift, and running this campaign. I have to say I couldn't do it without my supporters 100%, but if I get devoted to something, I go 100% and I don't quit.
Mm-hmm. And you're facing an incumbent. How much Mark Murwicki?
Mike Murwicki.
Mike Murwicki. How long has he's been running? For a while, so he has like a long list of supporters. Mm-hmm. And my question for you is, what is the difference between the two of you? What do you think would be like differences?
So just to make a quick clarification. There are 2 seats, and there's 3
Okay.
3 people running, and David Dean stepped down from one of the seats, so I'm running against. It's a 3-way race between me, Mike Merwicki, and Cindy Jerome. You know, I think that what differentiates me from both candidates. Also, I just want to preface: both candidates are wonderful people. They're well experienced, and you know, the people of Windham 4 are going to have a tough decision soon. But back to the question, you know, what differentiates me is the experience I've had as a police officer. It's a unique perspective, and I mean, the main platform of my campaign, you know, the heart and soul of my campaign is social justice. And that's why I signed up to become a police officer, and you know, social justice is what's driving me, and also the fact that I'm a younger Vermonter. You know, this is a state that's having a declining population, and I know young folks, you know, people in their late 20s, early 30s, and younger. You know, when we're looking to set up routes, we're not just looking at housing prices or job opportunities. We're looking at who our politicians are now, and I think a lot of that has to do with the last 2 years of politics that we've seen.
Now, that's a good point of Vermont being an exporter of young people.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of like, how do we attract more young people? But I wonder, like, how do we keep the people that are here, right? Like, that's, I think, instead of attracting more people, how do we keep the people here? And do you have any thoughts about that? How do we do that?
I think, you know, one of the best things we can do is advertise our education system a bit more, because, I mean, you know, when young folks are thinking of moving to a place and setting up roots, even if they don't have kids, they may be thinking about having kids in the future, and they're going to want to move to an area that has a good education system. And we currently do have a good education system. And so I think that's something that needs to be advertised more to younger folks. I also think that the lifestyle in Vermont is just very healthy. You know, I have a lot of friends in different cities, you know, Boston and New York mostly, and Providence, Rhode Island. And whenever they come up to visit Vermont, after their visit, they just say, I want to move here. This is where I need to live. It's so much better than the city. And I think just advertising our lifestyle, how healthy it is to live here, is a key proponent of that.
Yeah, it's a good place to live here. Yeah. So come if you want to come, people. So we're going to go into more in details of you running, like the themes. But the main question, I think, is why? Why are you running?
A lot of it has to do with the last 2 years of politics. It's no longer okay to just sit on the sidelines and hope for the best. You know, I encourage all people, regardless of how old they are, to get involved in politics. And participation and competition is very healthy for democracy. But the main driving force is social justice. And with everything that I've seen, it feels as if now is the time to step up and stand up for what's right.
And so let's go back a little into the issues that you're bringing up, and what would you say is like your main issue?
My main issue. I mean, there's so many, but
yeah, and we're gonna talk about it a little bit.
So my main issue is ensuring that all people are treated with fairness and equality, and dignity and respect. You know, I think some of the main reasons that I became a police officer are some of the main reasons that I'm running for office as well. And you know, there are a lot of disparities, both when it comes to race and, you know, social stratification, or, you know, financial disparities among people. And I mean, I know Vermont was, in 2016, we were the only state that saw an increase in poverty but a decrease in the median income. And I think that people should be able to live comfortable lives, and I think that we should treat all of our members in our community equally and with fairness.
Yep, I like that.
Awesome.
I like equality. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about, I guess, racial justice. That is, I think, one of the main things that are happening with the, the travel ban that just happened, the decision by the Supreme Court, and migrant families being separated at the border. And I guess what is our role as Vermonters here, and what would be your, I guess, as a representative at the State House, what would be your role like?
Well, regarding the separation at the borders, I think it's vital that all candidates and just citizens denounce what is happening. And so, I just want to take a second to say I strongly disagree with what's happening in the strongest language, what's happening with family separation, both as a candidate and as a police officer. That's not something I signed up for, and I don't want to be one of those people who 50 years from now says, I was just following orders, because that's a common phrase among people who commit war crimes and atrocities, and that's not me. I take a hardline stance when it comes to immigration and supporting dreamers and supporting the people who want to seek asylum in this country. Like I said, both of my parents were immigrants. My own mother came here because of political violence in Iran in the late 1970s. And this is something I could ramble on about for a while. But I know we have limited time. I think that the work that I've done on the Fair and Impartial Policing Committee is something that should be promoted. I've been on this committee for 4 years now, and we work alongside the chain of command of the Vermont State Police, legislators, including our own senator, local Senator Becca Ballant, and members from communities of color. And we work to introduce diversity to the workforce, the police workforce, and improve community outreach, as well as improve data collection. And I think continuing to take steps to improve community outreach, I'm thinking about this from a law enforcement perspective, but improving community outreach is key. That's one of the most important things.
Now, you're a police officer, and these migrant kids and families that are coming, they're going to these private jails and prisons all over the U.S. So what is your take on the overall and criminal, the jail system, the industrial complex?
It's the prison industrial complex. Yeah. We incarcerate more people than any other country in the world, and it's disturbing to me. This is supposed to be the land of the free, but we incarcerate way too many people, sometimes just for being in debt. And there are also significant racial disparities. Nationally, 1 in 3 black men will experience being incarcerated, whereas 1 in 17 white men will experience being incarcerated. And that perpetuates a cycle of poverty. And because once you spend some time in jail, you become a second-class citizen, because it's on your record. People will ostracize you and stigmatize you. It'll be more difficult to participate in the mainstream economy. And like I said, it just perpetuates a continuous cycle of keeping people impoverished. Mm-hmm.
Will you oppose the making of more jails in Vermont?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, private prisons, no private prisons here in Vermont.
Good. Maybe I should be more impartial on this. I'm an activist, so I might be a little impartial on some of these topics. Now let's talk a little bit more about the economy here. Mm-hmm. What do you see would be how do you see the development of economy here in rural Vermont?
Mm-hmm. So it's a bit of a conundrum, because people want to maintain that rural Vermont feel, but they also want to improve our economy. And so it's kind of a catch-22, because if we want a more active economy, we need to get people here first. And I don't want to turn Putney into a bustling metropolis, but it would be nice to have a few more businesses set up shop there, and have them not just set up shop, but also be supported, because it's so easy to buy 90% of the things you need on Amazon, but because when you're buying from a local business, you're not just buying an item for yourself, but you're supporting a young family or an older family who's running that business, and it helps the economy in that town. And I think we should promote more opportunities for maybe younger families who want to move to a place and establish a business. Antidote Books in Putney is a great example of that.
And so we talked about the economy. We talked about your experience as a police officer. And now there's the marijuana that's going to be legal in a couple of, in a week, I think. And yeah, less than a week.
Yeah, a couple days.
So I guess and I guess it goes in hand in hand. There's some people now that are in jail because of marijuana. What do we do with those people now that is legal here in Vermont?
I support expungement of people's records who, if they're in jail right now for marijuana possession that will be legal in just a few days, I think that they should be expunged, that record, because there are people, because once it's on your record, like I mentioned, you become a second-class citizen. It's more difficult for you to get a job. It's more difficult for you to get out of jail and stay on your feet. And I know different states' attorneys are working towards expunging people's records, and I fully support that.
Now, I have a question for you. When will you be taking office if you win on this election?
So the election is August 14th, the primary election, and then the legislative session would start in January.
January. Yeah. So comes January, right? Let's just imagine for a second you're a state representative for Windham 4.
Yep.
What is gonna be your approach in order to get to work for the people of Putney?
The most important thing is being a good listener. That's what I've learned. And being a good listener is also extremely helpful when you're a police officer, because sometimes in both jobs, people just want to talk to you and just tell you what they're feeling. You can't necessarily fix everything that people are telling you, but they just want to make sure that their representative or their police officer is aware of what's going on. And so listening is one of the most important things. And I'll never say that I know everything, but I mean, criminal justice and political theory, that's my background. If I need to know things about the environment, then I will surround myself with people who know things about the environment, people who are experts in that field, because I can study as much as I want, and I have been, but sometimes you need folks who've been in it for 20 or 30 years to provide you with that information and that guidance.
Now, you've been campaigning in Putney,
Yep.
and you're talking about listening. So as you've been listening, what are people saying that, what are you hearing that people need in Putney right now? What is the needs?
After asking me my age, the most frequent question I get is about either Act 46, regarding our education system, or gun safety. Those are the two most prevalent questions that I receive.
So what is your take on Act 46?
So Act 46 in our area, I do not support it. There's for two main reasons. The first is that it would diminish control that our small towns have over our schools, and our schools are the heart of our towns. And I know that Vermonters are fiercely independent, and they don't like being told what to do by other larger towns or by Montpelier. And the thing that bothers me the most about Act 46 is the fact that we were offered the possibility to create an alternative governance structure, and then we did that, and it was very comprehensive. And then the government turned around and said, it's not better than Act 46, so we're still going to have you merge. And so it's that illusion of choice, and then it's that illusion of choice, and then just saying that we're going to have to merge anyways. That's very frustrating, because the voice of the people clearly stated that we don't want to merge in our area, at least.
And guns?
Gun control. So I support reasonable, safe, and responsible gun ownership. I mean, I take a middle-of-the-road approach to it. I've met a lot of people who should definitely not have guns in my line of work. But I've also seen how responsible and disciplined Vermonters are. I support background checks, thorough background checks, and I also support a waiting period. People can still own their guns if they pass the background check, but I don't think that we need to have so many guns floating around. It's, I've seen a lot of guns traded for drugs and vice versa.
Now we're gonna go to a few things because we don't have a lot of time. But
Gotcha.
let's be
All right.
quick that we hit this.
I'll be
these
more
points.
concise. Yeah.
So women's rights.
Yep.
What is your position on that?
Women's rights. I think that women have been historically treated as second-class citizens, and they shouldn't be. I support more women getting involved in politics, 100%. And I know that one frustrating thing that I've seen is contraceptives being advertised as luxury items when that's not the case. There's a whole list of medical reasons they can be necessary for a woman, and I fully support women's rights. I mean, trying to be concise. Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So
and equality, equity and equality. Yeah.
So we are going through some intense climates around the world, and Irene happened. I was not here for that, but a lot of Vermonters are aware of that. Will you be a champion for climate change?
Yes, it's there's what I tell people is there's no planet B. We, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, we have to acknowledge that climate change is real and it's affected by humans, and we all have to start taking steps to maintain our environment. I mean, whenever I'm outside with my daughter, I always have this uneasy sense in me because I wonder if the landscape is going to look the same in 30 or 40 years because it's rapidly accelerating and it's very concerning, and we have to do more.
Pollution as well.
Exactly.
Okay, maybe this is maybe a little bit bigger issue, then you can take your time on this. We've been affected here by an epidemic of people suffering from opiates in the area. What is your take on the opiate epidemic here?
So one of the things we have to do is reduce the stigmatization of people who are addicted to opioids. This is another thing I can ramble on about for a while. We have to reduce the stigmatization, and we have to acknowledge that these are people who are members of our society, their sons and daughters, their parents. And we have to look at where we want our community members to be 10 years or 20 years down the road. We have to put an effort into lifting these people up and getting them the treatment that they need. We've had a successful hub program in Vermont where the overdose deaths have actually leveled out and are starting to reduce. And that's because of our successful hub program. I also do take an issue with the pharmaceutical companies and the perpetual cycle that they throw people in. Once somebody gets addicted to opioids, then they go to street drugs, and then they get on Suboxone, and Suboxone is produced by the pharmaceutical companies. So now that person is a lifelong customer of the pharmaceutical companies because they have to stay on Suboxone, which is more addictive than heroin.
Yeah, true. So it's been really nice talking to you. But before we wrap this up, is there anything else you would like people to hear from you?
I want to encourage everyone to start participating in politics more. It doesn't matter how old you are or what experience you have. Even if you're just, running a talk show or running for office, just get involved in politics. It's vital, and it's healthy for our democracy. That's the most important thing.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this. And how can people, are you going to be in any events soon or anything happening?
I'm going to a forum tonight, actually, at the Putney Meadows. We're going to have a few more forums on July 5th and July 10th with all 3 candidates where we'll be speaking. We'll also be having more house parties, and I'll probably be knocking on a lot of folks' doors over the next several weeks. So.
Good. Well, good luck on
Thank
this.
you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
expect some calls or maybe some canvassing knocking on your doors. My name is Ezlerh, and this has been Meet the Candidates here at Brattleboro TV. Have a good one.